The associate's draft is on your screen. It's competent, but it's just not how you would have done it. So you start revising it. Well, you end up rewriting the whole thing, and sometime later you look up and you've produced work that you already paid someone else to produce for you. I call that the midnight redo. And the word midnight, it's shorthand. It stands for long after you should have stopped. Welcome to the Free Lawyer Podcast. I'm your host, Gary Miles. And here's the part that most of us stop noticing. This is not a one-off, it's a pattern. And it carries a cost you've probably never put a number to, because the most valuable legal mind in your work is spending their best hours doing second-year work. That's a productivity problem, but it's actually not the one you think it is. This episode is for you if you are the partner the firm is built around, and you just cannot seem to let a draft leave the building without your hands on it. It's for you if you've ever called something a review when what you're actually doing is rewriting the whole thing. It's for you if every important matter still roots through you and you've started to feel the weight of being the one thing the whole firm depends on for everything. And it's for you if you started to suspect that your own standards have quietly become the very thing slowing you down. And if any of that landed with you, listen to this episode. It'll provide you some answers. Here's what I'm going to give you in the next 15 minutes. First, the 3 justifications that keep you redoing the work and why each one is true enough to trap you. Second, the real cost of the redo, which is not the hour that you think it is. And third, the reason this is not a delegation problem at all, plus the specific shift that ends it. By the end, you're going to see the redo very differently, and you're going to know exactly where it actually comes from. So let's get into the meat of the episode. Every reason you give yourself for that redo sounds like a standard. There are 3 justifications that are often said for such a redo. The first is the client deserves the best, and of course they do. The second is that your name is on it, so I better make sure it meets my standards. And the third is, it's faster if I do it myself. Each one of those is true enough to keep you rewriting, but also false enough to keep you trapped. That's what makes them so hard to question. Of course your client deserves the best, but the solution to that is not your associate writing the draft and you rewriting it. Of course your name is on it, and so it should meet your standards. But is that the easiest way to have it prepared? And yes, it is faster to do it yourself. And that's the justification that deserves the hardest look, because it's the most convincing in the moment it seems true. Rewriting the draft yourself is much faster than explaining to the associate what's wrong, waiting for the associate to redo it, and then waiting for a second review. But run the math past tonight. The associate who never hears why the draft missed will produce the same draft next month and the month after that. You bought yourself one fast evening at the price of a slow decade. The redo is absolutely faster tonight, but it is also permanently slower for as long as that associate works for you. See, this redo was never a character flaw. It's the structural inevitability of a standard you have for your work that's never been written down. There's a high-level partner named David, 26 years in, equity partner, the rainmaker his firm is built around. He didn't think he had a productivity problem. He thought he had high standards. But see, the two had quietly become the same thing. David reviewed every associate draft personally because, to him, that was what effective leadership looked like. But what he was actually doing was rewriting most of them. And he could not have told you the difference between reviewing them and rewriting them, because to him, there was no difference. See, reviewing and redoing had become the same thing, and he no longer noticed it. So why does a smart, disciplined lawyer keep doing this to himself? The key to remember is that the cost is never the hour you spent. The redo actually costs you a lot more. The first cost is your own time being spent at the wrong level. You're the most expensive legal mind in your firm, doing the best work, but you're doing work 2 levels below your pay grade. It's work for a second-year associate, and you're rewriting it at night or on the weekend. And every redo hour is an hour off the matter that only you really should handle. There's work that is meant for you, but redoing the associate work is not the best use of your time. You're wasting your time redoing that associate's work. The second cost is your associate never develops. When the feedback loop is your keyboard instead of your words, all the associate learns is their work disappeared and it came back completely different, unrecognizable. The associate did not learn anything. You didn't teach them what the right standards were, how they fell short, or how to do it better. The third cost is the one that really compounds. The standard for that motion you're rewriting, it lives only in your head. No one else can see it, name it, or meet it. The quality ceiling of your firm has become your personal availability. It's the one resource you cannot expand. You cannot become more available. So your firm can never grow, your associates can never develop. So let me ask you this directly. How many of your hours last month went to redoing, not reviewing? What is one of those hours worth at your rate? And what matter could you have been working on instead? See, these feel like standards, but that's why they stay invisible. The redo never felt like a line item. It felt like standards. So before we go further, here's the fastest way to actually see it. That question, how many hours you spent redoing your associate's work and what are they worth, is exactly what the attorney's productivity power assessment is built to surface. It takes less than 10 minutes, and it shows you where your hours are actually going, including the redo loop you have stopped noticing. You'll find it at GaryMiles.net. Take it before you do anything else, because you cannot redesign a cost you have never measured. So what's the usual advice? How do we fix this? The usual advice is to let go. Trust your people. Stop being such a control freak. That framing is not only unhelpful, it's incorrect. See, the redo persists because the standard of correct, the standard of how it should have been prepared, what your standards of excellence are, have never left your own judgment. As long as correct means whatever you would have done, no draft can ever not need you. You're not redoing the work because you lack a system for handing it off. You're redoing the work because the standard for what counts as correct has never left your own judgment. That standard lives inside you. It's unspoken. And it reveals itself only when your associate's draft violates it. That's why every delegation is ineffective and every draft comes back to your desk. See, that's the distinction between a productivity problem and an authority problem. A delegation problem is solved with a better handoff, but an authority problem is solved by moving the standard out of your head and into something an associate can actually meet before the work reaches you. That's what I mean by internal authority. The standard has to become something real outside your own head, or else it owns you and you become trapped to redoing all this work. David did not need to trust his associates more. What he needed to do was make his standards external. So if the standard is the problem, what's the fix? Well, it's not willpower, it's design. And here's what that design actually looks like. The key is to change where the standard lives and when you review. That's the key. So there are 3 moves that I'm going to suggest to you. The first is define the standard before the work goes out, instead of discovering it during the redo. The standard you can articulate is one an associate can hit. So go over with the associate beforehand what you're looking for, what it looks like, what your standards are, so that they have a target to shoot for. The second move is stop reviewing drafts when you're spent. Don't do it last in the evening at the office or at night at home. Because a really good draft read at the end of your depleted day looks unacceptable to you because your mind is tired, your focus isn't good. But the quality of the work is not the reason. See, your judgment is because you're running on fumes. So schedule your review for high energy time. I suggest first in the morning. The third move is to build a feedback loop that transfers and explains the standard instead of absorbing it. Go over with the associate what they missed, what they didn't get right, what they missed in words, so the associate can carry it into the next draft. If you go slower the first time, you'll go faster every time after. Your associate deserves to have you explain how they missed the standard, what you were expecting, and how they missed it. And you will gradually train that associate to give you work consistent with your standards of excellence. So let me give you an example. Say you ask your associate to write a brief on a motion for summary judgment. So you might meet with them, tell them to write it up, let me see it when it's done. That's the undefined version. That doesn't work. The defined version is to spend 10 minutes meeting with the associate up front, telling them what the strongest arguments are to emphasize, explaining what weak point should be conceded, giving them the anticipated length of the factual section, enumerating which arguments are to be made where, explain that every heading should be an argument and not a label. In other words, explain in some detail in 10 minutes exactly what you're looking for from him. Because the problem is you're not redoing the work because you lack a system for handling it off. You're redoing the work because the standard for what counts as correct has never left your own judgment. That standard lives inside you unspoken and only reveals itself when a draft violates. So one system that I have as part of my program is the triangle system. And that protects your high value work. I'm not going to explain in detail here, but it's in the course and it really works. It allows you to free time to review high level work such as this at a time when you're fresh. So those 10 minutes up front, explain to your associate exactly what you're expecting. They're the whole game. So now you have the competent draft in front of you. Your hands are already moving to rewrite it. I want to tell you something I learned the hard way across more than 30 years of running my firm. The handcuffs were never locked. Midnight was never really about the hour. It was about where the standard lived. That redoing you keep doing was never about the quality of the draft in front of you. It was about a standard that existed nowhere but inside your own head. And what that meant is every draft had to pass through your hands to be judged. You built your whole practice on the strength of your own judgment. That judgment is real, it's exceptional, and it's yours. And no one is asking you to lower it. But the work now is simply to move it out of your head, to move it into the work itself, to move it into your associates, to move it into something that people around you can see, understand, meet, and own. If you do that, that hour comes back to you, whatever hour it actually was. See, this is a design problem, and design problems have solutions. It's not a flaw in your character that you have to push through with more discipline. That's not it. You already have the discipline. You have always had the discipline. But the next move is to build a practice that no longer needs you every time, needs you to answer every question, to review everything because the standards have been explained. I'm Gary Miles. Thank you for listening to me today. If you would like to meet and have a complimentary coaching call, reach out to me at GaryMiles.net. I'd be happy to do that. And in the meantime, practice law with purpose, live your life with freedom, and I'll see you next time.